Hello, my wonderful friends. Sally the Seeker here. I hope everyone's doing fine. We're doing great and feeling blessed in Florida. We were actually out, well, at least our schools were out for, well, as of this recording, it is Thursday, the last day of August. And so we were out yesterday and today, but luckily we didn't have any damage, just rain. You know, we're kind of used to this. Not that we ever get like comfortable with it. We're very proactive about, making sure everything's okay. But it seemed to have hit a little bit further north of where we're located. And, hopefully everybody is doing okay there. So I'm just, hope y'all are doing great. And, I'm kind of back and forth on where I'm going to go. And I'm really trying to produce more content. Like I said, I still, enjoy reading your comments and responding and all that kind of stuff. I just bear with me if you don't mind. I'm trying to find a way to. I've got ADD. I mean, I'm on medication. It's not horrible, but it's just like I want to do so many things at once. And then sometimes you try to do everything, and then you get nothing done. So I'm just trying to experiment different ways. So I'm trying to get out more content because, I know I like to see it when it comes out or whenever, But, and then the other thing was what I was thinking about was the last video, of course, was Brooks as usual acting like a damn fool and, talking about how unfair everything was. Of course, that's because of the very cringy video and all that kind of stuff. And so following that was going to be his opening statement, which really honestly makes me want to regurgitate, but it's worth playing. Because, it just ties in because he really thinks that, I know one of the things he said in it, there's both sides. There's two sides to every story, but I'm sorry. As far as this case, there's only one side. None of those people did anything to him, nor did they deserve anything. All the I can't even get into all the awfulness that he's done. So we'll go back to the other ones. But I just thought, you know what? I just want to demonstrate. Well, I don't have to demonstrate. He's going to demonstrate. I'm just going to show you. And this is a tough one, but I've made myself go through it a few times. It does. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't make it easier, but I will say that by doing that, because with me, I'm one of those people who, I don't catch everything at once. I have to watch things like multiple times, and still I'll catch something, that I missed. And so, well, this is very grim, and I can't stand the way he acts at this during the question of these medical examiners. But I got to hand it to these two ladies. They're so professional, and it's just heartbreaking. However, he does say multiple stupid things, and so I am going to add humor. I don't mean humor out of disrespect for the people that were lost or their family members. It's just sheerly, to me, about roasting Darrell and pointing out stuff that you probably already know. But it just helps me maybe to say it with you all here with me. I know you're going to be here with me sooner or later when it's posted, of course. I know I'm rambling, sorry. It is hard, though. This gets tough. But so the first one, and of course these are witnesses for the prosecution, and this lady stepping up to the stand is Dr. Amy Schell, and she's an associate medical examiner with Waukesha Medical Examiner's Office. And I tell you what, I apologize, but I will be stopping and pointing things out. Sometimes doing this Darrell Brooks thing, and I'm working on some others too, but I'm not one to I'm not good. Some people can just like post it and, and not really research it and, and do very well. But I like to, I really like to research it and understand it because, like I said, my mind is everywhere. So I'm just somebody that it takes longer than others. I can't just go, oh, yep, I'm responding to this, blah, blah, blah. Because I really like to take it in, what they're saying, and even though we're roasting Darrell, it really is still about the victims who did not make it and the victims that are still living in pain. So I'm going to start with this one, and I think I know which one I'm going to do after the medical examiners, but I'll explain later. So anyhow, without further ado, let me get these people asking Dr. Shell about these heartbreaking autopsies.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you. Please be seated. First thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record and spell each, please.
Amy Scheel, AMYSHEIL.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think I said her name was Shell, but I think she said Sheel. I hate to mispronounce. Anyhow, okay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Scheel. How are you currently employed?
I'm an associate medical examiner at the Waukesha County Medical Examiner's Office.
How long have you been with the medical examiner's office?
About 7.5 years.
What are your duties at the medical examiner's office?
My primary function is to determine cause and manner of death. And in order to do that, I often perform autopsies or external examinations, send out laboratory tests, interpret the results of those tests, compile all this information into a report, and then certify a death certificate.
And is that report, what is that report called?
An autopsy protocol or autopsy report.
Can you briefly describe to the jury the schooling and training you went through to become an associate medical examiner?
Yes, I earned my Doctor of Medicine degree from Creighton University in Nebraska in 2003. And then I completed a pathology residency in South Carolina. That is anatomic and clinical pathology. And then I did a 1-year forensic pathology fellowship, which concerns how disease and injury cause death. Then I practiced for about a year as a forensic pathologist in South Carolina. And then I did an additional year of training in pediatric pathology, which is the study of diseases and conditions in infants and children. I worked in pediatric pathology in an academic setting for about 5 years before coming to Waukesha County.
I'm going to direct your attention to approximately November 22nd of 2021. Did you perform an external examination of an individual identified as Leanna Owen?
Yes.
I did give you 3 exhibits when you walked into court, is that correct?
Yes.
I'm going to direct your attention to exhibit number 62. Do you see that in front of you?
Yes.
Is that the autopsy protocol for Leanna Owen?
Yes.
And can you just state for the record how many pages that autopsy protocol consists of?
What?
It's not on the screen.
And it's not going to be on the screen.
Previously provided to Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Do you have any additional copies today? Any chance?
I do not. We can make some.
Okay, so right there you go. He doesn't have his copy. And we know damn well they provided him with his copy because he's so ill-prepared, he's so ill-prepared, he doesn't pay any attention when they give him papers, and usually he just ditches them. And now here he is, taking up more time, and they have to get another copy for him. During this time, I'm worked up because, these are people who lost their lives because of him. Here we go. All right. Unbelievable.
You don't have that in your materials, sir? Do you have the autopsy protocol in your materials?
No.
He should have. He should have.
provide that to Madam Clerk and we can make copies as well.
Was it intended for me to have or not to have? Just so I'm clear.
I can't answer that.
These autopsy protocols were previously provided to the defense.
Yes, it was intended. Don't even. Look at me. I'm acting like he's here. Don't even start your shit, because you know they gave it to you. I'm sorry, guys. I get a little bit, you know, this makes me very emotional. I mean, and I'm not even a family member. I'm not a victim, but I have been studying it for a while, so it's almost like I know all of these people. So I apologize for getting all upset and pissy and...
Go ahead, yeah.
So,
We're gonna run next door.
Oh, don't accept the value. Please shut up.
Do you have
Please.
exhibit 62, sir?
Would be the autopsy protocol for Leanna Owen.
I accept for value in return for value these documents shown.
The record to reflect that the defendant has a copy of exhibit 62. Please continue, Attorney Clayton.
Ma'am, what did you do in this case in terms of examinations of Ms. Owen?
On November,
Generally speaking, I'm sorry.
on November 22nd, I performed her external examination, which involves documentation of all her clothing and jewelry, her identifying features such as stature, body weight, hair color, eye color, any scars, tattoos, and then we proceed with documentation of injuries.
And did you also create a summary of the injuries that you located on Ms. Owen?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show for you on the screen in front of you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 163. If you can tell me when you can see that on the screen in front of you. And I did provide Mr. Brooks a copy of both the autopsy protocol as well as the diagram that's going to show on the screen.
Sent to being called that manual.
Oh, come on. Can you really? Do you have to do that right now? Gosh.
And you see, is it showing up in front of your screen? And Exhibit 163, is that the diagram that you prepared to summarize your findings in the autopsy protocol for Leanna Owen?
Yes.
And does it accurately depict the injuries that are notated or described in the autopsy protocol?
Yes.
I would ask the court to accept Exhibit 62 and 163 into evidence.
Objection.
About what?
The objection, each objection is noted, they're overruled. Exhibits 62 and 163 are both received. Permission to publish, or I believe only 163 is what you asked me for, is granted.
Yeah. One asked for.
Permission to publish 163, that's what I said.
Thank you.
Wow.
Ma'am, can you briefly describe what this document, Exhibit 163, portrays?
This diagram depicts Leanna Owen's injuries. The red represents open wounds, lacerations or abrasions, which are scrapes to the skin. Blue is for bruising or contusions. Black is internal injuries or skeletal fractures.
And in performing the autopsy procedure on Miss Owen, what was the cause of her death?
Multiple blunt force traumatic injuries.
Specifically for the injuries that she sustained, can you describe the fatal injuries for the jury?
Objection, please.
Overruled, she may answer.
Leanna Owen had injuries to her head, spine, torso, and viscera, or her internal organs. the combination of all these injuries led to her death, but she did sustain isolated injuries to her upper cervical spine or her neck spine and aortic lacerations. The aorta is the largest artery in the body. That would have been fatal within seconds to a couple of minutes.
And would all those injuries be consistent with being struck by a moving SUV weighing approximately 3,300 pounds?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm next going to direct your attention to, did you perform an autopsy on an individual identified as Virginia Sorensen?
Yes.
And do you have her autopsy protocol in front of you, Exhibit 63?
Yes.
And do you have a diagram detailing Ms. Sorensen's injuries on Exhibit 164? Oh,
I don't have the diagram.
you do not?
One second. This is 164.
That is correct.
Right, thank you.
Do you see it in front of you?
Yes.
Does the documentation in Exhibit 164,
Oh God, please don't
is
interrupt.
that a summary of your findings from the autopsy protocol for Ms. Sorensen?
Yes.
I would ask the court to admit Exhibits 164 and 63 and publish 164.
Objection.
Obviously, 164 is on the screen. Has Exhibit 63, the copy, been provided to Mr. Brooks?
Correct. The autopsy protocol for Virginia Sorensen as well as the diagram contained in 164 have both been provided to Mr. Brooks.
Objection, I don't consent to that name, nor do I agree to it.
You know what?
Oh. All right. Exhibits 63 and 164 are both received. Permission to publish 164 is granted.
Let me know when you see it in the screen in front of you.
Yes.
Okay. Again, ma'am, the injuries that are detailed in Exhibit 164 that's showing on the screen, was that exhibit created as a result of your findings in the autopsy protocol for Ms. Sorensen?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury what injuries you discovered? Well, first of all, strike that. Did you perform an external and an internal examination of Ms. Sorensen?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
When did you perform those?
November 22nd, 2021.
And during the autopsy, what injuries did you discover on Ms. Sorensen?
Virginia Sorensen had blunt trauma to her head, neck, torso, and right leg.
Were you able to determine a cause of death for Ms. Sorensen?
Yes, multiple blunt force traumatic injuries.
And can you describe for the jury which injuries were fatal injuries?
Virginia
Objection,
Sorensen.
leading the witness.
Overruled.
Oh, shut up.
Virginia Sorensen also had a high cervical spine injury with laceration of her brainstem. She also had lacerations to her heart, either of which would have been fatal.
And is that consistent with being struck by a moving SUV weighing approximately 3,300 pounds?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Hearsay.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Finally, Dr. Shield, did you perform an autopsy on Jackson Sparks?
Yes.
And did you create an autopsy protocol after your examinations of Jackson Sparks?
Yes.
And did you perform, or did you create a diagram which displayed the injuries on Jackson Sparks?
Yes.
Do you have in front of you Exhibit 64, which is an autopsy protocol for Jackson Sparks?
Yes.
And I'm going to display what's been marked as State's Exhibit 165 on the screen in front of you.
Objection, I'm confused. The 64 or
They reference both.
Oh, okay.
64 is the protocol, 165 is the diagram.
Okay, I was a little confused.
Mm-hmm.
For the record, the state did provide Mr. Brooks with a autopsy protocol for Jackson Sparks as well as a copy of Exhibit 165, which is the diagram. Ma'am?
Objection.
Don't even.
Insensitive,
I'm
nor do I know that.
You know,
For the
it's not the
record.
time. Nobody cares.
Please continue.
Thank you. Ma'am, does Exhibit 165, the diagram in front of you, accurately show the findings that you made during the autopsy of Jackson Sparks?
Yes.
I would ask the court to admit State's Exhibit 64 as well as State's Exhibit 165 into
Objection.
evidence and publish Exhibit 165.
Objection.
Overruled. Exhibit 64 is received. Exhibit 165 is received. Permission to publish is granted.
This is going to be a tough one.
And Exhibit 165 is the diagram that you took, which displays the findings that you made in
Little
your
guy.
autopsy protocol.
Yes.
Can you describe for the jury the injuries that you observed? Strike that. When did you do your external and internal examination of Jackson?
November 27th, 2021.
Sorry, I may
Why
be
was that
missing
later
it.
than the others?
Jackson went to the hospital. He was pronounced brain dead on November 23rd.
And again, is there any reason why it would take till the 27th to perform the autopsy?
Objection.
He was
Hold
in.
on.
Oh, sorry.
Overruled. You may answer.
Jackson was in the hospital. He became an organ donor, which often
Bless his
requires a
heart.
couple of extra days.
Can you describe for the jury his injuries?
Jackson had bruising around both of his eyes. He had a large bruise to the left side of his forehead. He had undergone a craniectomy where the neurosurgeon removes a portion of skull to relieve pressure on the brain from brain swelling. That's the large oval depicted on the left side of the skull in the diagram. He had trauma to his brain. He had bleeding around his brain inside his skull. He had multiple bruises to his brain. He also had a separation of his skull from his cervical spine. And he had 2 rib fractures on the right side.
What was his cause of death?
Complications of craniocerebral injuries due to blunt force trauma to head.
And what injuries of those were fatal?
His head injuries.
Would that be consistent with it being struck by a moving SUV weighing approximately 3,300 pounds?
Yes.
Objection. Per se.
Don't say. That just, that moves me how the medical examiner who's seen everything. But I would have to imagine that seeing everybody is important. Don't get me wrong, all of these people. But somebody, seeing somebody like little Jackson, that's just, wow. And he's worrying about leading the witness, and, he really just doesn't care about anybody, even though he'll act like he does.
Overruled. Answer, Ms. Jones.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Oh, God, here we go.
Cross-exam.
1 second.
Oh, he's going to have his moment of being sad. And it makes me, we already know how I feel about him, but he always does this. He needs his second to gather himself together, and he acts like he's sad. And I don't think he is a bit sad. Maybe he's sad for himself because he has to go to prison for 1,000 years and deal with a bunch of bubbas, but I don't think he gives a shit about any of these people. I really don't. If he's crying for anyone, he's crying for himself, no one else, because he doesn't know anything about what compassion and love and all that. But I guess we'll have to go through his little thing and he'll be real slow. You know, the best service he could have done for these people is not ask any questions. What questions could he possibly ask that's going to help him? It just, to me, is so disrespectful to the families, but of course he doesn't care about that. Okay, here we go. So now we have to stare at his hideous hairline while he's staring down, and he'll probably get a tiny tissue out, and he'll start to talk real slow, but he's still going to ask stupid, insensitive questions. And then he's making people wait. In addition to all of this. Just like... look at them. They're all probably like, what an idiot. Zach, go beat him up. There's still time. You know how disgusting it must be for the family to watch him act sad. Please. Pure evil. Pure evil. I'm sorry, guys. Sometimes you get really into this. I mean, I really have, and it's like I have to back up sometimes because it's still so hard. I mean, nothing like compared to them, but I've invested so much that it's just sickening. Please don't close up on him. Oh, gosh.
Your cross, please.
Yeah, see, Judge Darrell doesn't buy it either. She's probably saying, get done.
Do you have any questions for this witness?
1 second.
You've wasted everybody's time enough. You need to get on with it.
I apologize to the court for
Now, you need to
taking so long.
apologize to the victims and their family. See, right now he's still in control.
Do you know why the decision was made to why the decision was made for Jackson to become an organ donor?
Objection is irrelevant.
Sustained.
Seriously? Okay. Right there. That's one sick individual. And you know what? It made me sick to even hear him say the name Jackson. I said, don't even put his name in your mouth. Again, I apologize, guys. This does get me very upset, so hopefully y'all understand. It's just like, and then to ask a question like that, it's none of his damn business. Why would he? Oh my gosh. The question is, why did you do what you did? I don't know. That's just so insensitive. Okay. Don't worry. He's going to come up with some dumb things, and I will make us laugh. I will. Not that we still don't, we're somber, but we must have a sense of humor when it's warranted. Okay. What else is he going to ask? Surely that's enough. Okay, here we go. I bet she's like, what the hell are you doing? She had to see all of that.
Did you
Come on.
Did you end up doing any more autopsies beside those 3?
As it relates to this case or some other case, sir?
This case. To this case.
Could you hear the question?
Could he please repeat it?
Please repeat your question.
Yeah, make him repeat it. That's right.
As far as this case, those are the only 3 autopsies that you did.
Yes, Jackson Sparks, Virginia Sorensen, and Leanna Owen.
Good. Say their names again. Good for you, doctor. What could he possibly have to say right now? Did you notice that the windows were tinted? Come on.
Can you recall when Can you recall when they were brought to the hospital?
Virginia Sorensen and Leanna Owens were pronounced at the scene. Jackson Sparks was transported to the hospital.
Poor little Jackson and his family.
I'm
Again,
assuming that's Waukesha Memorial.
He was transferred to Children's Hospital of Wisconsin.
Upon first tending to the victims, were you in the knowledge of what happened?
sorry. I will let her answer that question. Okay, tending to the victims. I mean, I get it, but it would be the deceased because of you, Darrell. Tending to the victims, tending to the deceased. And what does it matter if she had knowledge of what happened? Everybody knows what happened.
Yes.
And that knowledge was given to you immediately.
What?
Could you please repeat?
Speak up, Brooks. Just hurry and ask your question.
That knowledge was given to you immediately when you were called to tend to him.
Yes.
Were you called to attend to any other victims of the incident?
Okay. You called to attend to any other victims at the incident. Has this kind of not already been asked and answered? She already said she only tended to the 3. Oh my gosh. I'm wondering why they aren't objecting. I wonder if they're just kind of going to let him write it out and just go ahead and show the jury who he is. I mean, I think it doesn't take long to figure out who he is, but I'm curious because to me it would be like, what is the relevancy of that? Unless somebody else knows, but that is, she's already answered that, but all right, go ahead.
Or just the 3?
Jackson Sparks, Virginia Sorensen, and Leanna Owens.
I love it that she's saying their names. Good for you, doctor.
You didn't tend to anyone else?
She already said no.
Grounds?
No, don't no grounds anything.
Overruled, she may answer.
Really, doctor? I mean, really, judge?
No.
I'd like to ground him in the face with my foot.
Further questions?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Dr. Shield. You may step down.
They could read direct and say, do you think he's an idiot? Oh, boy. Okay, the next one up is,
Exhibits, please.
well, they'll tell you. Dr. Linda, oh, she has an interesting name. Bierdritsky, something like that.
Your
Say
Honor,
my call. Sorry.
Your Honor, if it pleases the court, may I have a few moments?
Oh, for gosh sake.
We can take a short break. I'll excuse the jury. We all can take about a 10-minute break. All rise for the jury, please.
I don't think it should please the court. I think you should stay through here and watch it. And yet he's still going to cry unfair about everything. Mm-mm. I don't believe he's sad or sorry or anything, nor does he need a minute.
All right, it's 2:13. We'll be in recess for 10 minutes. We'll be back at 2:23. Thank you.
You better come in with yourself put together because everybody else is. Yeah, you need to open it. Yeah, open it to the right one. Oh, he's going to be all sad looking. I wonder if Don watches this every day. He's not getting enough attention.
Appearances are as they were before. Just to confirm, Attorney Opper, the next witness will be the other medical examiner, and the exhibits related to that are hard copies have already been provided to the defendant.
That is correct, Your Honor, and also the state has put on the witness stand exhibits 59, 60, and 61, which are the autopsy protocols for Tamara Durand, Jane Kulik, and Wilhelm Haspel.
All right, thank you. Then, with that, we'll have the jury. Oh, one other thing.
I just had a question as to timing, as to how late you wanted to go today so we can have enough witnesses here.
Sure. So I was not told of any conflict, so I would like to go between 5 and 6, depending on where we end with witnesses and where we end with direct and cross-exam, and when we can begin someone, and how many individuals that you have. Would that work out with the individuals you have scheduled for this afternoon?
Yes, I believe so. And then tomorrow morning, I wanted to address timing for tomorrow morning as well, but we could do it later if you're interested to get the jury in here, Your Honor.
I'd probably be inclined to have our normal time tomorrow unless there's a request to do something different.
Yes, I'm going to request a 9 a.m. start time, Your Honor. I have a court appearance in branch 10 that was put on in a kind of an emergency because there's a speedy trial demand that was made with an in-custody defendant. So we had been starting at 8:30. I agreed with branch 10. I could be there at 8:15 to address that. I'm scheduled to present the district attorney's budget to the county board tomorrow morning at 8:30. So if the court would be willing to start court at 9 a.m. tomorrow, then we'd be ready to go.
I don't have an issue with that. We can either cut into the lunch hour if we need be, go a little bit later. We have ample time, from my perspective, set aside for this entire case, even if the state believes they're a little bit behind.
And to that extent, Your Honor, we feel like we're making, catching up a little bit here today. So,
Mr. Brooks, any statement or comment based on the requests that have just been made?
No comment. Just briefly touch on the subject matter jurisdiction again.
Oh, for the love.
For the
The
record.
court will not be addressing that. Please bring out the jury.
Yeah, she's like, we don't have time for this. He's gonna hold his heart a little bit. Oh, his heart. He has no heart. Soulless. Don't even. We only feel sorry for you. Sorry, guys.
Myself. Can you grab it for me? If he's right there. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. All right, then, the state may call its next witness.
Call Dr. Linda Bitzricki.
All right, good afternoon, Dr. Bitzricki. If you would please make your way to the witness stand, which is to my right, up one riser. When you get there, please remain standing, raise your right hand, and my clerk, Teresa, who's on my left, will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. First thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record and spell each.
Linda, Lynda, Biedrzycki, Biedrzycki.
Thank you. Go ahead, your witness.
Thank you. Dr. Bitzricki, how are you employed?
I'm the medical examiner for Waukesha County.
How long have you been the medical examiner for Waukesha County?
About 25 years.
And can you briefly describe for the jury your education and training that you obtained prior to becoming the medical examiner?
Yes. I went to medical school at the Medical College of Wisconsin. I did an internship in internal medicine. Then I did general pathology training, which is anatomic study of tissues, and clinical, which is laboratory medicine. 4 years of that at several different places, including the Medical College of Wisconsin, University of California, and William Beaumont Hospital. I did a fellowship in forensic pathology, which is the study of trauma and legal medicine in Detroit at Wayne County. And I did a year of cardiac pathology at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston.
Directing your attention to November 22nd, 2021, did you perform an autopsy on a Tamara Durand?
I did.
And Did you prepare, as a result of the autopsy that you performed, an autopsy protocol?
Yes,
Did you also prepare a diagram for court in order to summarize your findings from your autopsy protocol?
I did.
In front of you, you should have State's Exhibit number 59, which is the autopsy protocol for Tamara Durand.
Yes.
Do you see that? Okay, and then I'm going to show in front of you Exhibit 166. It will be on the screen in front of you shortly. Ma'am, in looking at the screen in front of you, is that your diagram that you prepared for testimony today, which shows your summary of the autopsy protocol, the injuries to Ms. Durand?
It is.
Can you describe for the jury, well, first of all, when did you perform the autopsy on Ms. Durand?
On November 23rd.
And were you aware that this was as a result of an incident that occurred in downtown Waukesha on November 21st, 2021?
Absolutely.
Overruled, her answer may stand.
Did you go to the scene on November 21st, 2021?
I was there.
Okay. What were your findings with regard to Ms. Durand?
She had two groups of injuries, I like to say. One is from the impact of the car with the body, and these injuries include the marks on her hips that you can see on the posterior.
And I'm just going to ask the court, I apologize, permission to admit Exhibit 166 and 59 into evidence and permission to publish 166.
Objection.
The objection is noted. It is overruled. Exhibits 59 and 166 are both received. Permission to publish 166 is granted.
I apologize, if you could start over with that testimony, they didn't have the diagram in front of them.
There are two groups of injuries, which is typical in a pedestrian injury. One is from the impact of the car with the body, and the external evidence of that are the marks on the back of her hips, which I indicated their heights of between 34 and 38 inches, the abrasions and bruises, the red and blue marks. And those points of contact resulted in fractures of the pelvis on the right, which is indicated with green or dark lines across the pelvis on the skeleton picture. So the car struck her hip, broke her pelvis. The other injuries that are characteristic of pedestrian injuries are the small abrasions on her toes on the right. You see little red marks on the toes. She did not have the shoe on the right foot. The impact of the car with the body pulls the foot out of the shoe. This is very characteristic of a pedestrian injury because of the force and velocity of that impact. The second group of injuries is when the person strikes the ground after that impact, and that's reflected by the laceration, a red mark on the back of her head, and then reflected by a line on the skeleton diagram across the skull, which is a fracture from ear to ear at the base of the skull, and two fractures in the occipital area or back of the head, which you see in the posterior skeleton, which extend basically to the base of the spinal cord. Internally, corresponding to that impact with the ground, there was subarachnoid hemorrhage, or hemorrhage covering the brain, and also a tear at the level of the brainstem from that impact. Also, from the ground contact are multiple rib fractures. On the left, they were the upper ribs. There's little marks near the scapula on the left, and mid-ribs on the right. You can see the little marks there. And as a result of the impact that caused the fractures, there were also contusions of the lung bilaterally on the inside. And hemorrhage, we call retroperitoneal hemorrhage, which is the area around the kidney on the right side. So the two groups of blood trauma.
And ma'am, I'm going to give you a pointer. I think it's hard maybe for the jury. I'm having a hard time seeing some of the dots on the skeletal diagram.
Objection. Relevancy it is.
Overruled.
So they,
Overruled.
oh, shut up. So they can see where she's pointing. Don't give him grounds.
Relevant.
If you were so sad, you wouldn't be doing your grounds thing. Maybe it's hard for you to
Again,
see what
if
you
can
did.
just briefly describe what you
No,
just
that's about
testified to,
them.
or briefly point to what you testified to.
Objection. Action answer.
Overruled.
She hasn't
The
pointed
witness may
anything yet.
answer.
Okay, so the first type of injury from the car are the skeletal, the fractures of the pelvis here, and the external marks here at the heights that I've indicated from the hood of the vehicle. The toes are seen at this time. If you could bring them up right here. On the top of the toes, when they're lifted out of the shoe, there's often scraping, and that's what you will see. Then the second group of injuries from the contact with the ground, if you can go down now, is a laceration to the back of the head from contact with the ground, a fracture across the base of the skull, ear to ear, fractures to the back of the head on the right and the left, and internally subarachnoid hemorrhage and the brainstem tear. In the chest, fractures here, ribs 3 and 4, and 5 and 6 on this side, with also contusions to the lungs, pulmonary contusions bilaterally, and retroperitoneal hemorrhage, or hemorrhage in the soft tissue around the kidney area. And just because it's flipped, this kidney area, the right kidney, is in this area of the skeleton, right above the areas of the fractures of the pelvis.
You have measurements on the third diagram from the left-hand side. What is the significance of those measurements? You had talked about the height of the car. Did you see the suspect vehicle, or did you go to look at the suspect vehicle in this case?
Yes, I did.
Overruled. She may answer. Go ahead.
He probably doesn't. Oh, I don't mean to leave her like that.
I did.
Sorry. See, I think he's ticked off because she got to go. She went to look at the car. Yeah, he doesn't like that, even though it's really not his anymore. And maybe because he's upset because he didn't give consent to her to go look at the car. But that's going to bug him, that she looked at the car. That's what I think.
On November 23rd, I went to Fleet in the county complex where the car was being held, and I examined the car, looking for points of contact between the car and the pedestrians. And I also looked at the configuration of the vehicle, like the height of the hood, what the wheels look like, what the tires look like, where the bumper was, where the damage was, and took multiple pictures.
And with the observations that you made on the third diagram from the left, and those measurements, that would be consistent with the measurements taken of the hood height of the suspect vehicle?
Yes, it's typical of the more SUV type of configuration of a car. I mean, a very low sports car would have the hood would be low, and the bumper, and if a bumper protrudes, then the bumper might be the leading edge. But SUVs have kind of a flat front and a higher hood. The hood that I measured and the vehicle was damaged was 42 centimeters, but that's only at one point because the configuration of the hood had different shapes as the metal was curved over the wheel well and so forth. So these measurements, 38 and a half, 37, 32 and a half, are pretty good for the height of a SUV type vehicle at the point of contact at the pelvis.
Thank you. You have a seat. Ma'am, can you describe to the jury the fatal injuries that were suffered by Ms. Durand?
The head injuries, the brainstem injury was quite severe. That would alone be fatal. The pulmonary injuries and the rib fractures could also alone be fatal, causing respiratory compromise. And the pelvic injuries could alone be fatal, causing hemorrhage. So she died of multiple blunt trauma, but each area of injury was quite severe in and of itself.
Would that be consistent with her being struck by a moving SUV weighing in excess of 3,300 pounds?
Absolutely.
Pretty hearsay.
It's overruled. She may answer.
It's typical of a pedestrian injury. It's typical of an injury with the SUV configuration, and the speed would be at least considerable because of the momentum which resulted in these severe injuries.
When you say the speed would need to be considerable, what does that mean?
I will explain injuries are proportional to the energy delivered, kinetic energy. Kinetic energy, the formula, is 1/2 times mass. Mass would be the 3,300 pounds times velocity squared. So velocity is like really critical. So if you look at severity of injuries and speed of the vehicle on a graph, the graph doesn't go like this. It's not when speed increases, injuries increase that way. Injuries increase like this because velocity is such an important part of the equation.
Thank you. Moving next to the autopsy that you performed on Jane Kulik, I would direct your attention to State's Exhibit number 61.
Yes.
And also I'm going to project in front of you State's Exhibit 167, which is the diagram, I believe, that you created to assist in the testimony today.
Yes.
Let me know when you see that diagram.
I see it.
Okay. And does that accurately depict the findings that you made in your autopsy protocol?
Yes.
I would ask the court to admit State's Exhibit 61 and publish 167.
Where's 61?
You should have that, it's not been on the screen. It was provided to you previously.
That'd be the autopsy protocol for Jade Kulik.
All right, Exhibit 61 is received. Exhibit 167
You better have it.
is received and permission to publish is granted.
Now, ma'am, directing your attention to November 23rd of last year, did you perform an autopsy on Jane Kulik?
I did.
And can you describe your findings during that autopsy? And if you can use Exhibit 167 as well as the pointer and the screen to your right.
Okay. So Ms. Kulik had 3 types of injuries. She
This
had
one's the rough
first
one.
time we discussed being struck by the vehicle. We have an impact to the left hip here at 39.5 inches, and we have pelvic fractures on the left here. We have injuries to the tops of the toes. Now, she had no shoes when I saw her, but the sock on the left foot was torn right in the area of the toes. Also, there's an abrasion to the top of the foot. That would be considered
Poor
as being
thing.
taken out of her shoe. So that's from the car impact. Then second, we have injuries from hitting the ground. We have a laceration to the back of the head. And we have some abrasions on the left side of the face and the nose area. The third type of injury she has is from being run over by a tire. So we have a squared off abrasion across the upper abdomen, lower rib area that was sharply demarcated as I drew there. So it's not as if the abrasion blended into the skin, like if you do a sliding motion, but it was quite sharply demarcated. And associated with this injury, her liver was like lacerated, multiple tears in the liver, bleeding from that liver injury. She had multiple fractures on the right side of her chest. Anteriorly, she also had lower rib fractures posteriorly here. So the pressure of the tire compressed the liver, and it also compressed the part of the chest. The diaphragm on the right was also torn. There's also looked like a tire mark on the lower part of her left leg. There were no fractures under that site. So she had impact from the vehicle, impact to the ground, and then crushing from the tire.
Yeah, when he ran over her after he threw her
What
off
did
the
you
hood.
determine the cause of death to be for Ms. Kulik?
Multiple blood trauma.
Jeez.
And the fatal injuries, can you describe those for the jury?
Her injuries from being run over were probably the most severe, with the multiple rib fractures and the crushing of the liver. Also severe, however, was the pelvic fractures. Pelvic fractures, I didn't maybe explain, cause a lot of bleeding because your aorta divides in the pelvis into your iliac arteries, so it's a very big blood vessel, and also your inferior vena cava is there. So if you damage any blood vessels in the area of the pelvis, you're damaging pretty large caliber vessels and you can lose a lot of blood. So, and also there's bone marrow in the pelvis. So pelvic injuries, especially when they're fragmented, as it was in her case, can be very, very serious. So I would say those were the two, and then the rib fractures, and I didn't mention, she also has pulmonary contusions on the right and hemorrhage in the retroperitoneum on the right. So those injuries, the chest injuries, the pelvic injuries, and the abdominal injuries, each were very serious and could have been fatal individually.
And is that consistent with Ms. Kulik being struck by a moving SUV weighing in excess of 3,300 pounds?
Yes.
Overruled. Her answer was stand.
Yes.
Thank you. Finally, ma'am, I'm going to direct you to the autopsy protocol for Wilhelm Haspel, which is Exhibit 60. That should be in front of you.
Yes.
I'm also, did you prepare a diagram documenting your findings through the autopsy protocol?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 168.
Yes.
I'd ask the court to admit Exhibit 60, which is the autopsy protocol, as well as the diagram contained in Exhibit 162. Or 168, I'm sorry. And permission to publish 168.
Objection.
Noted, it's overruled. Exhibits 60 and 168 are both received. Permission to publish. Exhibit 168 is granted.
What was the first one?
60s.
Gosh.
And ma'am, did you perform an autopsy on Wilhelm Haspel on November 22nd, 2021?
I did.
And can you explain for the jury your findings that are contained on Exhibit 168?
Yes. Mr. Haspel had similar types of injuries from the impact of the car. He had a very rectangular shaped bruise, 42 inches above the heel to the back of the left hip. And he also had a bruise above, right around the back of the knee, slightly above and slightly below, that extended between 16.5 and 24 inches above the knee. This hip bruise corresponds to the fractures of the left side of the pelvis, right here. He also had foot injuries. Instead of the toes, he had marks to both the back of both heels, and that could be because of the type of footwear. Again, he did not, I saw Mr. Haspel without clothing, so I did not see the shoes. They were taken off at the hospital because he had surgery, but he did have injuries that we often see in pedestrians as well, whether the shoes were taken off or just the friction from being struck. Then he had the injuries from hitting the ground, which were lacerations and abrasions to the head on the right side and on the back. And the result of that was a fracture on the right side of the head. But this is kind of also interesting and shows how this injury occurred. The fractures on the right side of the head, but the bruise to the brain and small subdurals on the left side of the head. That's called contre-coup. And that type of injury occurs in a moving head injury. So his head was moving, hit the ground on the right, caused the bruise on the left because of the rebound of the brain striking the skull. So he had injuries from being struck by the car and injuries from hitting the ground.
Now you testified, first of all, about the injuries to the back, the second diagram from the left, and the height of those injuries. Are there any relevance of the height of those injuries as well as the measurements that you took of the suspect vehicle, which was a red Ford SUV?
Yes.
Okay.
When I measured the side of the hood, I got 42 inches. There's a picture with a tape measure showing that. So that corresponds well to the height of this particular pattern injury. And the height of the top of the bumper, because now the bumper is not a shiny chrome protruding bumper, it's kind of a flat bumper that's painted the same color as the vehicle, so it's rather broad, is about 26 inches, which would correspond to a strike to the back of the left leg there.
Poor man.
And you had testified that unlike the other two people that you had performed autopsies on, were those people brought to the medical examiner's office from the crime scene being Main Street?
Objection.
Ms.
Hold
Durand,
on, overruled, she may answer.
I'm sorry. Ms. Durand was brought from the scene, and I saw her at the scene before I did the autopsy. Ms. Kulik was brought from Waukesha Memorial Hospital, where she was pronounced, and Mr. Haspel was brought later because he was treated at the hospital.
And can you describe, or did you determine the cause of death to be for Mr. Haspel?
Multiple blunt force trauma.
And the fatal injuries for Mr. Haspel, can you describe those for the jury?
Answer.
Shut up.
Overruled, she may answer.
Respect, man.
Mr. Haspel's most severe injuries were related to his pelvic injuries, which he lost a lot of blood. They required to put a coil to try to obstruct the bleeding vessel to stop it from bleeding. It was not accessible surgically. You had to put like a coil through the vasculature. But also the impact here caused an injury to the thoracic duct, which carries your lymph fluid. And as a result of that injury, he also had an accumulation of fluid in both chest cavities of the lymph fluid that occurred during the hospital course, which impaired his respiratory status. So it's an indirect cause of the injury, the accumulation of the fluid, but they both were related to the impact of the vehicle. His head injuries, it's harder to assess because he died. He did present with a change in consciousness, so it's possible those head injuries would have been independently fatal.
And would those fatal injuries and the injuries that you've described, would those be consistent with being struck by a moving SUV weighing in excess of 3,300 pounds?
Objection.
Overruled, you may answer.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's right. You tell him.
Any questions for this witness?
I do.
Oh, gosh.
Your primary field is in the medical field. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Any reason why you would be inspecting a car if that's not a medical professional thing?
Really?
The examination of anything that's related to injuries in the people that I later examine is relevant in my specialty of forensic pathology.
Mm-hmm. The car was the weapon. Of course she's going to check it out.
So examining the vehicle would be important to your medical assessments in what way?
Because the injuries that people sustain, whether it's a vehicle in this case or anything else, it's important to correspond the nature of the implement being the car. So it's possible I would be shown a car that would be not consistent with the injuries.
So it would be fair to say you've done numerous autopsies in your time as a medical professional. Would that be fair to say?
That's true.
And as you just said, examining the vehicle would be essential to your medical expertise. Is that fair to say?
Examining the vehicle is important to interpret the injuries. I'm not sure that, I don't know if that's the answer to your question.
You don't know either.
So if you were doing an injury assessment based on if the injury was caused by a different kind of instrument, would the same apply to having to view that?
Yes, if, in cases of gunshot wounds, I asked to see the gun. In cases of stabbings or blunt trauma, I asked to see the weapons that they think were used, so I can determine if they are consistent or not consistent. I can't make matches, like precise matches, but I can say it looks like a baseball bat or it looks like a pair of scissors, that kind of thing.
It would be fair to say in the case of a gunshot wound, as you brought up,
Jeez.
it wouldn't be, it would, let me back up. It would,
Ugh.
would you say it would be hard to assess the gun, being that it wouldn't be the actual gun, but the bullets that caused the injury?
Well, actually, I don't examine the bullets, but I would examine the gun, especially, for example, if it's a contact wound. So if the muzzle of the gun touches the skin, then the muzzle could leave a mark. So then I could say the muzzle of the gun shown to me might match the mark.
And that, if it was something similar to that, the muzzle type thing, that would be, the mark would be from the heat. Would that be fair to say?
No, not actually. It's actually from the contact of the metal, so it's more of an
Not
abrasion
fair
than
to
burn.
say. He wants to think he knows so much, but nope.
So in a case like in a case like that, what would be the significance of the actual inspection of the gun?
I'm gonna object to this question. I think it's a little bit of field of where we're at.
Grounds.
Overruled, she may answer, she brought it up as an example. I'll allow a little bit of leeway, but go ahead.
Could you repeat your question?
What would be the significance in a case like that, as you stated? You view all types of instruments, gunshot wounds and things of that nature. What would be the significance of inspecting the actual gun in terms of the injury?
Well, I may be able to say that the mark on the skin, for example, is consistent with the outline of the muzzle of that particular weapon, looking at the dimensions and shape.
So what if it was used from a distance? Then what would be the essential reason to inspect the gun?
Depending on the distance, sometimes the pattern of stippling.
We've heard enough about guns.
Like, for example, if there's a flash suppression or something used, that can play a role.
Do you know if at the time you did the autopsies, any of the victims you performed the autopsy on had any underlying illnesses at that time? Any cancers or anything like that that may have been going on at the time that you did the autopsy?
Yes, I would make observations of any natural disease processes that I saw at the time of autopsy.
Did you observe any?
Yes.
Do you recall from who that was?
Well, Mr. Haspel, he was an older gentleman. He had some heart disease, as I recall, a pacemaker, some coronary artery disease. Ms. Kulik, as I recall, had a large fibroid. That's what I remember. I could look and clarify my memory further, but those are examples.
Can you explain to the jury what is a large thyroid? Is that the word you thyroid?
Fibroid.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, Lord.
Fibroid.
A benign uterine tumor.
Is that a form of cancer?
I don't want to. No, yeah. A benign. Benign means it's non-cancerous. Whoa. So I'm laughing at that one. So is he going to ask if the fibroid filed a claim? Dear Lord. And she was able to keep a straight face.
No.
Dear God. Yep. Can't blame it on cancer.
And you said the older gentleman had some fluid buildup in the chest. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to misquote you.
Yeah.
Some type of fluid around the chest area.
Correct.
And from your recollection, that wasn't caused by the vehicle?
That was. He entered the hospital actually with no evidence of that fluid, but It's lymphatic fluid from a thoracic duct injury. So over the time he was treated, especially with the fluid resuscitation, because of the blood loss, the fluid collected in the hospital as a rupture of that thoracic duct injury and was in the pleural space surrounding the lungs.
Yeah, it's because of
So that it would be fair to say that that came about once he was already at the hospital.
That's true.
cause from the
And you said
vehicle
he had a
though.
pacemaker. Would that have any
No,
effect whatsoever
I'm just saying no,
on
I don't know
what
for
might
sure.
have been going on in his chest at the time?
No, and because he was in the hospital, the function of that pacemaker was well documented while he was being monitored.
Was it pretty active, still working properly at that time?
It was.
Nice try.
Even with the loss of blood, as you say? He had a loss of blood, even then, was it still working pretty
Even
good?
then,
Yes, the loss
Even
of blood
then.
had no effect on the electrical function of the pacemaker.
you were the cause of the loss of blood. He's trying. Just stop asking questions. So show some humility. Yeah, he didn't know what that is. Please stop.
And were you at the parade at the time of the incident?
No, I was called after.
God.
So at the time you were called, did you know any information about the incident?
Yes, because I was called in my function as a medical examiner, I was informed about the death of numerous people, injuries of more, and that this was a result of a car going through the parade.
Do you recall if it was referred to as a car
Oh,
or
here we go.
an SUV?
I'm sure I was told it was an SUV because the vehicle in question was in custody at the time.
And you were already privy to that information before you arrived at the scene?
Either before or at the scene.
Do you recall whom informed you of that?
God, who?
It could either have been my staff, who were the first person,
What does it matter?
first people notified, so they would have reported to me what they were told, or it could have been detectives at the scene who I also interacted with.
So it'd be fair to say you don't really recall.
Not specifically.
And you said you observed damage to the vehicle when you were able to view it?
Yes.
Please, yes.
Would you say it was extensive damage, or did you really look at one specific area? Or let me rephrase that: were you really focused on one certain area of the vehicle when you viewed it?
Well, when I was examining the car, actually the crime lab was there. So we looked at the entire circumference of the vehicle, and the vehicle was also on a lift, and we looked under the vehicle because we were questioning whether there was clothing perhaps or other physical evidence that would be important to document. So I would say that I looked at the car quite comprehensively, although it was not my job to document damage to the vehicle per se, other than what related to my autopsy interest.
And that would be specifically looking at the hood of the vehicle to determine how it fit with your medical expertise?
Well, I paid attention to the front end of the vehicle, which is the part that typically is involved in pedestrian strikes. And those are the parts that I paid more attention to in terms of measurement than, say, I don't know, but it would be wherever the damage is, because now I'm thinking in some pedestrian strikes, there are cracks to the windshield or injuries to the side mirrors and so forth. So I paid attention wherever I thought the damage would be that would be relevant to my cases. But I did take measurements of the front end.
with your expertise, would you determine that all of the damage that you observed would be caused strictly from hitting one thing or numerous?
Well, that's a dumb question.
I can say that there were multiple areas of the car that had damage, so it would seem unlikely to be from one impact, because in my experience, it's, you can have a frontal impact, you can have a side impact, you can be rear-ended, but there were dents, if you will, in multiple areas of the car.
So from your expertise, that could have came from a number of different things.
That's true.
Oh, stop it. This is so sickening to me.
You made a brief observation about speed and velocity. Do you have any expertise in that area?
Oh, don't put up
Only
this.
to the extent that I understand how injuries occur, and in terms of the transfer of kinetic energy, because all injuries I see in the body have to do with that kind of transfer.
Would it be fair to say that everybody is different, though?
Everybody is different.
What the hell?
So
Does anybody have to object? Jesus, man.
I guess I would phrase the question by saying, something that may seriously injure someone else probably would seriously injure another person.
That's
based on your expertise.
Expertise? Are you talking about your vehicle? That would be a very stupid
Generally,
question.
things of a serious nature don't become not serious. I would say that different people might have this, there are differences in people and how injuries how different events might injure them. But I wouldn't say that something that's serious in one individual would be minimal in another.
Exactly.
Even though there might be a range, it's not going to be
The way you hit them.
okay for one person, but maybe deadly for another. That
No.
is not typically how it is.
But it can vary.
It can vary.
But not with you. My God, you plowed over people. Is anybody going to stop this? I've watched
Do
this.
you recall how many people you were called to attend to the night of the incident?
To tend
How many
to?
people I was called to attend to?
Yes.
Oh, for gosh
There were 3
sake.
victims on the road. Those are the ones that I saw that night.
Did you see anyone else besides those 3?
Oh, my God.
I later saw Ms. Kulik, who came from the hospital. Those were the people I examined that evening.
Dear
So
Lord.
it was just the 3.
The 4.
The 4,
Oh, I'm sorry, 4.
yes.
Yeah.
And no one besides those 4.
Correct.
No, Darrell. Don't ask about tinted windows. Injured party. Be done. Be done. Be done.
Do you recall being notified possibly to testify
Oh,
in
Lord.
this matter?
Please.
Yes.
Do you know about when?
Hey. Oh, my gosh.
I knew always that this case would end up in trial. I mean, but I don't remember when I actually had a date and time for appearance.
And how would you know exactly that the case would end up in trial?
Really?
And I say that because many factors could play out along, many different things happen.
No. You got
Over
identified.
You're right. That was probably a misstatement on my part.
No, it was
I
not.
thought it might go to trial, given the nature of the case,
Boy,
but
she
I did
is.
not know for
Boy,
sure.
she's so diplomatic.
That makes sense. Definitely.
Oh, ooh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what you're saying doesn't make sense.
So you had
Oh,
an
God.
idea that you might be
Oh,
testifying.
my gosh.
That's true.
And when did you know for sure that you would be testifying?
But you really only know for sure when you're called to court. You get a subpoena and things can still change. So I guess that's the best answer I can give you.
Do you recall when you were subpoenaed?
No,
Was it fairly recent to now, or was it some time ago, a few months?
probably not months, but I don't remember.
Do you know who sent it? Did you point him out for the
Do you
jury?
recall whom you were subpoenaed by?
Oh my God, he's so
The
predictable.
district attorney.
Oh, he's gonna get all excited.
Would that be referring to one of the district attorneys here today?
Sue Opper.
Now what, Dodo? See that lady back there, the journalist, is always amused like we are. I'm sure that's what she's thinking.
Do you recall what time you arrived on the scene after the incident that night?
Does that matter?
It was about 10 to 8.
And do you recall what time you finally left the scene?
No, I don't recall exactly.
Would it be fair to say you were there for quite some time?
Probably around an hour or so, and then we continued our work at the medical examiner's office for a couple more hours.
And after you were subpoenaed, did you
Excuse
were
me.
you in contact with Attorney Opera after that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. She's looking at. I don't want. What the hell are you asking me?
Did Attorney Opera ever state that she was the plaintiff in this matter?
Oh,
Objection
Grounds,
relevant.
oh no! Please, I
Sustained.
forgot about
You
this.
do not have to answer that question.
grounds for the sustain, Your Honor.
Yeah, he really
Yes,
feels
exactly.
bad about what he did to everybody. He's his same old self.
Were you ever made aware of the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection
Grounds.
relevance.
Sustained. You do not have to answer that. Please ask your next question.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor, before I continue.
No,
Ask your next question.
that is so. See, yeah, he recovered very quickly, didn't he, from his little sad spell there? I
Do
bet
you
she's.
even know if there's a plaintiff in this matter?
Objection relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Reason for the sustain, Your Honor.
Ask your
Wow.
next
Yep,
question.
he's his regular self.
No reason for the sustain, Your Honor.
Ask.
Do you really think? Oh God, there's those aggressive eyebrows. That means aggressive. Look, the jury. I mean, I'm telling you. With each breath, I know I said it in the last video, they're going to detest him more and more. And I know it's tough not to have biasedness, but the way he is, the disrespect he's showing and asking these dumb questions and reason for grounds or whatever, I mean, he's still doing it at a time where he needs to not do it. He just, no couth, no couth. Nice job, Mama Don.
Ask your next question.
Don't be an ass. Just ask it, or no, don't ask it. Just close it
Do you
down.
know of any claims filed in this matter? By you or anyone else?
Jeez, man.
What are claims?
Any reports filed? Any
You sound like a fool.
any filings made on your behalf or anyone?
Filings made. Look at her face.
I'm actually not sure I understand that.
Yeah, really.
Judgment is vague.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Sustained. Thank you.
Sustained is the form of the question.
Did you make any claim of being an injured party in this matter?
Are you serious?
No,
Do you know of anybody that has?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Such an insensitive.
Sustained.
Reason for the sustain, Your Honor.
Really? She's not gonna don't answer it.
Relevance.
Wow.
Speculation. Vague.
And stupid. Let this woman go.
Have you had
Oh gosh.
any opportunity to view a complaint in this matter?
Objection, vague.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form.
Have you ever seen a complaint in this matter?
Objection, vague.
Ooh.
Sustained
Can't
as to the
stand him.
form.
Can't stand him.
Have you ever at any time had any interaction with the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Reason for the sustain, Your Honor.
Please make him stop.
Vague. Relevance.
I would object to that sustain.
Oh.
Say vague and relevance. Relevant to the
Sustained.
case.
Next question, sir.
It's relevant, Your Honor.
The jury needs to know.
Deserves to know.
The jury is finding out.
I respect
What
that.
idiot.
He deserves to know, though.
Oh no, no.
So disregard the last statement made by Mr. Brooks. It's not his time to testify. Comments made by the parties or attorneys are not
Yeah, see, he
evidence.
isn't that broken up, or he wouldn't have continued to act like an ass. That was my kitties. Say hello
Have
to the
you ever
people,
seen
Paris.
the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Reason for the sustain, Your Honor.
Same as before.
He should not be asking that.
So that would be relevancy and vagueness.
Ask your next question.
Oh, he's pushing it. You need to stop. Please stop, please stop.
Was today your first time ever seeing those exhibits that were shown?
Oh my gosh, didn't she make those?
You seen those before, those videos?
Videos?
Yeah, the exhibits that were shown.
What
The
videos?
Diagrams?
yes.
The-
I'm sorry, I didn't know that's how you identified them.
Oh, I drew them.
Oh, those exact ones?
Yes.
Also, okay.
She already said that earlier. You weren't listening.
I wasn't aware of that. I apologize for that question.
Yeah, you should apologize. You weren't listening. She already said that. Videos. I don't know the difference between a video and
And so I'm assuming at some point you turned those over to the district attorney. Would that be fair to say?
Today.
Oh, today. Any reason why you didn't previously
gosh.
turn those over before you actually were called to test, or before you knew that you would be testifying today?
I decided to prepare them for the purpose of testimony. They didn't exist before today.
That's interesting.
Oh yeah, you think there's something hidden agenda?
So
No.
this was really like a 11th hour, bottom of the night thing for you to get them prepared and be ready to go today then. Would that be fair to say?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, it's true, I did
Ooh, excuse me.
finish preparing them today, but I was, what shall I say? I was detailing them, and wanted them to be as good as possible.
So how long did it take for you to detail them?
I guess I have to explain that there are no pre-existing diagrams of front and back, skeleton and body diagrams in my office's collection of diagrams. So I spent time finding the proper diagrams, scaling them, composing them, and putting them in a format that I thought would be the best to illustrate the points I wanted to make. So I created the basic diagram, and then I decided on how to describe the injuries, and I, did one version, then I did another version. I wanted it to be very good, And so that's why I can say it didn't exist in the form you saw today until today, because that's what I was doing.
So would it be fair to say that you have been working at this for some time then, to get it the way you?
A few days.
She could be
Did you
accurate.
anticipate that you would be using those diagrams?
Oh God.
Yes.
I can't with him anymore. At least tonight.
So I'm assuming that some type of conversation had to be had in order for you to work that hard on those diagrams. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Jeez.
And you had that conversation with Attorney Opper?
Yes.
And what's your point?
To your knowledge, why would you, well, not why, take that back.
Yeah, please
To
do.
your knowledge, what would be the reason why you weren't already asked to develop those diagrams?
She's the one that figured it, who decided it.
Meaning, why weren't you asked this months ago in advance?
Oh my God, that's such a dumb question.
I don't think that anybody thinks about what exhibits might be used in a trial until the trial approaches, would be my answer.
This lady is so amazing at handling
But it
him.
would be fair to say that you just testified that you didn't know for sure if
Gosh.
there would be a trial.
Correct,
That it was an assumption.
correct.
Mm-hmm. And what's your point? It's not, you don't have any gotcha moments. Give it up, Brooks. These ladies are too smart for you. Jeez.
Had you ever created any diagrams like that before? This
Yeah.
incident?
I'm sorry. For these cases,
Or at any time before this particular case?
are you still you're not referring to these particular
These
cases?
particular, the way that you did these, had you ever done this before this incident?
I've used diagrams in many, many trials. I just didn't have a diagram that displayed the body and the skeleton in this manner. You know, I had no pre-existing form, but I use diagrams all the time.
So for this particular case, you decided to go a little bit extra. Would that be fair to say? Grounds.
Sustained,
That's a dumb question.
as to the form of the question.
He's asked her, let that poor lady go. Good gosh.
Would it be fair to say then that for this particular case, you decided that you would want a diagram that was a little bit more defined?
What I decided was we had three decedents, and I thought it would be easiest for the jury to understand the complexity of the injuries. We're talking about three people sequentially, if I could compress the information. Otherwise, a typical autopsy might have a skull diagram, and then another page a body diagram, and then another page a skeleton. You know, it would be multiple pages. And I thought that would be very difficult when we're talking about three different people.
So had you thought of that before in any other cases that you've done before this
Oh
one?
my gosh.
I don't remember testifying about three pedestrians in trial in one sitting ever before.
No. I wasn't asking if you've
Yeah.
testified at a trial before. I was asking based on the explanation that you just gave about making it easier to read the diagrams. Had you ever thought of that before this particular case?
Yes, it's not unusual for me to create my own diagrams specific to a case.
What I meant by that question
Oh
was
God.
the way that
Can they
you
stop him?
designed these particular diagrams.
Jeez.
Had you thought of doing it this way
This way.
before this particular incident?
What, you mean before it even happened?
Sustained.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor.
Stupid. Please be done. This is ridiculous. These questions don't make any sense. So rude, disrespectful. Look at their faces. Everybody's just like, I can't imagine them having to put up with him every day for weeks.
Do you recall when you completed all your
Oh my gosh.
medical work for this particular case?
But the autopsy report was signed in February of 2022. So my medical work, my conclusions were concluded at that time.
So about 8 months.
Go ahead. Yeah, 8 months. What?
At the time that you concluded your reports, were you already thinking about forming the diagrams?
Oh my God, he's
For
asking
injuries?
the same.
So that kind of came about during the process of
Oh my God.
possibly knowing that you might testify.
The diagrams were created as court exhibits.
Today.
Completed today.
I don't know what he's getting at. If y'all know, please let me know. I don't know what he's getting at, except he's wasting time. He's asking really the same question in different ways. It's, gosh.
Do you recall what time they were completed today? Was
What
it
does it-
morning or
Didn't she
shortly
say?
before you came in, or
She just told him earlier.
grounds?
Overruled. You may answer.
Oh, come on, Judge.
I think I actually completed them last night, but we got the copies made this morning, and they were
You
not
say
given
we,
to
who do you
Ms.
mean?
Opper until today. So I think they actually were completed in terms of my sketching last night, but they were not, I had to get color copies made and they had to be submitted. So I would say, I thought of them as being done this morning, but I was working on them last night.
No further questions.
Thank God.
Briefly. Ma'am, to follow up on these diagrams that have been presented in court today, are all the findings that are contained in those diagrams from the autopsy protocol?
Yes.
Overruled.
Relevancy.
Overruled.
Shut up and let her talk for once.
And ma'am, could you have brought in a it's Halloween, so we see them all over the place, but could you have brought in a skeleton and described the same injuries?
Objection, relevancy.
After
Overruled.
the dumb questions you asked,
She may. It's not hearsay. She may answer.
hearsay.
I could show you the broken bones on the skeleton. I couldn't show you the injuries to the soft tissues or the organs on the skeleton.
And if you had in a doll or a mannequin, that would be something that you could show the jury, just like you did in these diagrams, where the injuries, the external injuries were. Would that be a correct
Objection,
statement?
relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
That's true.
You used a lot
So
of
is there
time.
anything on these diagrams that were not contained within the autopsy protocol that were turned over to the state months ago?
Objection, relevancy.
Oh, shut up.
Overruled.
No, there's nothing on the diagrams that was not, that isn't listed in the autopsy reports.
In fact, if I had a blank diagram in reviewing the autopsy protocol today, if I put a blank diagram in front of you, could you have made these same markings right here? And it would have just taken time, obviously, but could you have done it right now?
Objection, lead the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, I could.
Uh-huh.
Now, I want to talk briefly about Jane Kulik's autopsy. You had stated that you had discovered a benign uterine fibroid. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did that in any way, was that a factor in her death?
Objection, hearsay.
Yeah.
Overruled. She may answer.
No.
And with regard to Wilhelm Haspel, was the presence of
Get
a
him,
pacemaker
Attorney
in
Basie.
any way related to his death?
Objection, I asked that in my cross and she
We,
answered.
shut up.
Overruled. It's redirect. It's proper. The state may ask it. You may answer.
No.
The coronary disease that you testified to on cross-examination, did that play a factor in his death?
Objection, same reason.
Overruled.
Already
She may
answered.
answer.
No. Yes, it's
The
stupid.
thoracic fluid found in Mr. Haspel's lungs that you said did play a factor in his death. Is that correct?
Yes.
What caused that fluid buildup around his lungs?
Objection, answered already.
Shut up.
Overruled. You may answer.
It was an injury to the thoracic duct that was caused by the impact of the vehicle. to his body.
Yes. Score.
Nothing further, thank you.
All right,
Good
thank you.
job. Good
You may
job.
step down.
As much as he berated and asked questions, what is he doing? Like speeding? Oh my God! I loathe him. I loathe him. What is? He is not that sad about anything. I don't even know what those weird expressions are. Like, ooh, look, ooh. I think
My
he's-
jurors are okay. Just thought we'd stand for a bit, but then keep going with testimony. So everyone may stand. Do a little stretch break. We haven't done one of those in a while.
Please don't ask anything, Darrell.
Right, good
Yeah.
thing the camera can't capture you.
Look at him. He looks so arrogant. He is. Oh my God! I can't. What is wrong with him?
The non-chair.
So at this point, I was going to somehow pay tribute to the victims. I mean, there's so many of them, but right now I'm speaking of the 6 that unfortunately lost their lives. And I'll be honest, sometimes when I do these videos, I can do it like really quick, but I don't know, if something, reaches me deeply, I'll do a lot of research, I'll read through a lot of things, or watch through a lot of videos to try to choose the right thing, and it's still hard. I mean, I would say this whole weekend, sometimes that's why I'm a little slower getting things up and everything else. I was going to, after this, with the medical examiner's testimonies, I was going to put up the victim's impact statements. And I had not really seen all of it, but I spent pretty much all weekend because it was a lot. And I just thought I think it would be too much for us. I mean, this is already enough as it is. And so I'm going to put that up at a different time. But then I went and I kind of looked through and I saw where, which I need to play this at its entirety at some point, because Zach here, Attorney Zach Witchaw, did an excellent job. He did the opening statement. And so I thought, well, you know what? I'll just let Zach do the speaking, because he explains to the jury and everybody, how this happens and what they hope to prove, all that kind of stuff. And then I found a little bit of information on each of them. Try to end this on a positive note is what I'm trying to say. So that is what I'm working on. So right now, I'll turn it over to Zach.
Bench, something that you bring to a parade to sit on, and how they got knocked off that bench when the defendant ran into them. The next point in the presentation of evidence will involve the Waukesha Blazers. I think it's important to point out you can't consider this evidence of each crime in a vacuum. You need to consider the entire incident. Because at this point, by the time we get to the Blazers, the defendant will have already hit or run over 15 people. You'll see in the video that at this point the defendant has actually increased his speed and you'll hear from Detective Mike Carpenter with the Waukesha Police Department. He's going to come in and talk about speed analysis. He'll tell you that he's certified to use a software program that basically takes surveillance video, measures the amount of time it takes to travel a certain distance in that video, and calculates an average speed over that distance. And he'll tell you that in video obtained from Bosco's Social Club, which is right in front of where the Blazers got hit, he'll tell you that that video in that area right before the Blazers got hit, the defendant was traveling in excess of 33 miles an hour. There were 5 victims in the Blazers. That includes Jackson Sparks, who was walking with his big brother Tucker. Cut down in the road before he had a chance to put any miles on his soul, Jackson was 8. The next group down the parade route is Citizens Bank. And here we reach the second count of intentional homicide. Jane Kulik was marching with Citizens Bank with her friends, with her co-workers. This is the only count of homicide for which there is no clear video depicting how she died. So instead of watching video, you're going to hear evidence from her co-worker and from the man who was driving the truck pulling this float. And they're really the ones who are in the best position to observe exactly what happened to Jane Kulik as the defendant plowed through that parade route. And they're going to describe for you how she was struck, how she was run over. The medical examiner will explain that Jane Kulik's cause of death was multiple blunt force traumatic injuries. Then we're going to move in to the next group in the parade route, which is the Dancing Grannies. This is the deadliest point in the parade. 7 people in this group were struck. 4 of them died. You're going to hear from witnesses, members of the Dancing Grannies group, who will come in and they will describe being completely caught off guard. They will describe seeing pom-poms in the air, and the next thing they knew, there were bodies on the ground before the pom-poms hit the ground. You will learn about Bill Haspel, who was marching in a support capacity. He was there to support his wife Lola and their friends, the rest of the Dancing Grannies, just walking along the parade route trying to be helpful. And as the defendant swerved around the Dancing Grannies vehicle, which is a white SUV, you'll see it in the video, swerved around the right side, he hits Bill. The medical examiner is going to tell you that Bill Haspel cause of death was multiple blunt force traumatic injuries. You'll learn about Tamara Durand, marching with the Grannies. This is her first parade. You'll see a diagram of where she was positioned. You'll see video of her getting struck. The medical examiner will tell you that Tamara Durand, cause of death, multiple blunt force traumatic injuries. You'll hear about Owen, another Dancing Granny, positioned right next to Tamara, who had just begun one of her favorite routines, walking in a winter wonderland, when she got hit. You'll learn about Ginny Sorensen. You'll learn that Ginny was walking at the front of the group carrying the banner. You'll learn that Ginny was normally a coach for the group. Normally she rode in the vehicle in the back so that she could provide feedback and critique to her dance mates. But she filled in at the last moment today and helped carry the banner. You'll see video of Ginny getting struck.
So at this point, I like I said, went around and researched and tried to find things that I could share with you all about these victims, the ones who succumbed to the attack from Brooks. Because having lost family members myself, certainly not in this horrific way, but within the last, I don't know, 8 years, my mom, dad, and sister. My sister I was definitely not expecting, but not this way, but it's still tough. But it's like we focus so much on how they died, but you think about, how do I say it? To make it sound, I don't know how I can make it to sound right, but it's like, you think about it, that's just a short moment. And it's like we forget to remember how they lived, and we grieve for that loss, which I still continue to do. These people will always too, but what helps me are my photographs, my memories, and knowing I believe I will see all of my loved ones again. So this is Jane Kulik. This is a cool story about her and her husband. That's them when they got married. She was 52, Now, depending on your age, that's not very old to me, since, I'm older than that. So this little story, I guess, was in church one day when her and her husband, John, were in church. And it says, the topic of the sermon at Bridge Church in Waukesha was couples throughout history who were better together. Well, then I started, it's not about me, it's about Jane and John. I was going to say, well, I found out that maybe I'm better without, or maybe they're better without me. Nah, just a little joke. But that part is true. Okay. So listening from the pews, John and Jane Kulik snuggled in close to one another. They had been together for 32 years, married for 22, and had 3 children and 3 grandchildren. I rubbed her shoulder, she rubbed my knee. We looked at each other, John Kulik said. We knew that the sermon was about us and for us. And so, of course, then it goes on to describe how on one Sunday afternoon, which was the parade, she goes to the Christmas parade, and I kind of skim over that part. But, she was a teller at the Citizens Bank, and she and her fellow employees were there to distribute candy to children. And then now John says, Monday through tears, there is no us. Look at that. Let me see if I can get it closer up on this. And that wedding photos are so sweet. Look at that. Aww. But I guess, let's go this way. Yeah. But it's like, I guess they had met like 30 years ago. And I guess I don't know if she was born and raised in Wisconsin, but she'd lived there. So when they met, he was new to Wisconsin. But he said he knew that she was a girl he wanted to marry from that day, he said. Oh, it does call her a Milwaukee native. I told the people I work with, and they thought I was crazy. I have heard stories of this before where, it was love at first sight or close enough, and they end up marrying, and that happens. And so it says, like a month later, they had a date at a German restaurant. He proposed, she accepted. Children followed. First a girl, then twins. I will say, watching the victim's impact statements, it did get me to know a little bit more about the family. And she, at the time, I think the oldest daughter is 29, and then they had twins, a son and a daughter. So at the time, the oldest daughter was 29, and she had 3 children of her own, and the twins, which was a horrible time for her to lose their mom. She was. They were 17, and the daughter got up there and spoke, and her twin brother was with her, but she was just like, she wasn't there for her prom. She wasn't there for her. Now, we're not going to make this sad, but I feel like, how important these people were to them. She wasn't there for her graduation, and they were talking about, just saying how much fun the family was. They had game night, And there were 3 generations gathered around the table, playing and laughing. And she said, my mother was a wonderful, beautiful soul. She lit up everyone's lives. And the older daughter spoke too, but I think it was the younger daughter who said, you know, she's the glue. We're the glue. She's the glue, and we're all falling apart. And it just sounded like she was really fun. Just kind of seemed like, what was it they said? Like she tripped a lot. You know, just kind of like, and you can identify with people like that. They're human, you know, and I trip around a lot too. Not because I've taken any, you know, too many beverages or pharmaceuticals or anything. I'm just clumsy. You know what I mean? I spill food on, you know what I mean? I'm just human, which is great. And the family obviously is devastated, but it just sounds like they really had a wonderful, you know, and you could just tell by hearing the husband. Now, I didn't see him. He may have been in the courtroom, but I did not see him. I only saw the 2 of the kids speak. He said that Jane had loved working at the bank, and she was working toward becoming a personal banker. And he said she had found her niche. She was working hard, doing the classes, doing the extra things too. And that included appearing in the holiday parade with her coworkers. And so she was excited about that, you know, just handing out candy, minding your own business. And then, oh my goodness, so sad. And then Tamara Durand, she was only 52. Beautiful, another beautiful woman, a soul, it looks like. And I know that her brother was the one who gave the impact statement. And I don't want to like tell a fib, but I believe he'd even written Brooks in prison. And, you know, I don't know. People are amazing. So this is Tamara and her husband, David. And they had known each other since high school when she was a cheerleader. So apparently she always loved dancing. He said that she had danced her way through life, even if there was no music. It was how she lived her life. She's dynamic, energetic, beautiful, big-hearted, he said of his wife of 8 years. And then, sorry, I'm just going to try. I know there's something more here. Oh, sorry about that. I think there's a little bit more on her. Let me see. Sorry. Just words here, but everybody would talk about her smile, he said. And I did, in another article, I did see some photographs. She was actually with a friend, actually in my neck of the woods, well, my state, Florida, 2 days before she went to the parade. And it showed her photographed with a friend of hers. And it looked like they were just having a wonderful time. And she had that beautiful, bright smile on her face. And I can see why everybody talked about her smile. They said she volunteered as a chaplain at the hospital, watched her grandchild, so she had a grandchild 4 days a week so her daughter could attend college, and she ran every day, whether it was 5 degrees below zero or 85 degrees, her husband said. Well, I wish I had that much energy. Good for her, man. That's good. And David, her husband, said when they got married, she drew him into the world of dance, even though he said he claimed she was a good dancer and he wasn't. He said they often went to live showings of Dancing with the Stars, and she watched nearly all of the dance-related television shows with him by her side. She danced as much as she could. At 52, she was the youngest member of the Dancing Grannies. It was her first performance with him and her last. Aww. She was beautiful, David Durand said. She brought energy into every room she walked in. See, they're more than just casualties. They're humans just like us. Oh, yes, Leo, and I think now I'm sure that all of these other, family members were in court, but I just remember seeing, I think Chris Owen is one of the brothers that we see. I think y'all have seen them both. If when we're looking at them, they're usually on the right hand, the back side, and I've seen them. They're off, probably every day. And of course, I loved their impact statements, victim impact statements, because it was, man, they gave it to Brooks, and I don't blame them. I mean, you don't mess with somebody's mama. But Chris, that was one of her sons, he said he was standing on the side of the road with his 2 kids on that day, waiting for his mom to pass by in the parade. But then a red vehicle came speeding through, followed by the police. Then everyone was told to leave. He said he got a hold of everyone except for one person. I was trying to call her back and text her on my way back, Owen said. Obviously, we never heard from her. Leanna, Lee Owen, raised Chris and his brother Matt in a home that kept its doors open to their friends and neighbors. Social and loving, she was seen as a second mom to many of those kids. They all just loved her, he said. Chris Owen recalled with fondness the times that the brothers had friends over at the house while she was at work, something they were not allowed to do. I don't know, I could just tell by looking at those guys, I mean, even though I know they were going through a great amount of grief, I think about how my sister and I were, and I could just see them picturing them as younger boys, and I bet they were a handful for their mom, but in a fun way, Leanna, or Lee Owen, look how beautiful she is. Oh my gosh, these people are, look at that, beautiful. And I saw another picture of her somewhere else, and she's like tiny, and I'm like, I can't, Leanna, Lee Owen raised Chris. Oh, I already talked about that. They all just loved her, he said. Oh, okay, now I get to get the other part. Chris often recalled with fondness the times that the brothers had friends over at the house while she was at work, something they were not allowed to do. See, I told you, they're probably a handful. She came home early and caught us, and she was so polite to all my friends, asking how they're doing and how their parents are doing, Chris Owen said. But as soon as the last one was out the door, I'd get grounded and sent to my room. These are great stories. So he said while they were growing up, Lee Owen had a few professions, including one as an accountant and an accountant manager, her last job. David Schmidt, who owns the 2 32-unit buildings Owen managed, said she was full of kindness for her tenants. She didn't have a mean bone in her body. She was the nicest lady, Schmidt said. She was the glue that kept that apartment complex running for us. It was that love of people that led her to joining the Dancing Grannies several years ago. The other women became like sisters to her, Chris Owen said. They would often go out to eat together, They would often go out to eat together after practice and performances. Lee Owen was a Catholic, a Packers fan, and an animal lover. Okay, there's a woman after my own heart, who rescued pets that had trouble finding homes. Her dog Oscar is an English bulldog with a skin condition that resulted in hair loss, which means he has to wear a t-shirt. In the winters, he wears a coat. I love these stories. I'm so glad he shared so much. She also owned 3 cats. One that was rescued from a farm, but that was who she was, someone who always wanted to help those that needed it. Those close to her, he said. She would walk around her apartment building with Oscar, this loud, mangy English bulldog, in a t-shirt, Chris recalled, laughing. The dogs she had were always crazy and weird, and you had to be careful around them, but she loved them. And that's kind of like me, except for my exception of Poco, my little Poco, which, another story I'll have to share with you at some point. I just can't right now, but he wasn't crazy. But I did end up with some dogs that were like, oh my gosh. I guess God sent them to me because I figured nobody else would want them, but it is. I end up with those. So it's like, you always find something you can identify, and I'm like thinking, what a cool Lady this would be. Chris Chris spent time with her on Friday and Saturday. He was visiting from Istanbul, where he now lives. When they last spoke, he said she reminded him about the parade on Sunday. She was kind above all else. She tried to help people any way she could, Chris said. She was a joy to be around. And I believe in his, I believe that he had planned to have her come out and visit them. So this is these women, age does not define a lot of people. I think she was 71, because it sounds like she was very active and she was going to go visit him in Istanbul. She still had things she wanted to do, and it does suck, doesn't it? It really does. But, you know what? And actually, I believe it was, I can't remember. You know what? With Lee, I kept wondering, where does she have a husband? Where's the dad? And I'm telling you, I don't remember where it was. But like I said, I did do a lot of digging. But it sounds like that the boys' mom and dad divorced, I guess, some years ago. But he said they were still, very close. One of those that divorced, but they still remain amicable. And that, he really relied upon her, on Lee, the ex-husband, the boy's dad, and that he was devastated by the loss. So it's just but that's nice that they were able to remain, amicable. So you have to excuse all these other little articles, that are popping up beside it. This, I like the looks of this article because looks like she was an animal. Virginia Sorensen was an animal lover, like Lee Owen. So I thought, yep, another my kind of person. See, there's a little thing I can identify with each of these people. That's what is cool. But so, at the head of this one, it says, of the article, it says, Waukesha tragedy victims, Virginia Sorensen, 79. She looks great. These people look great. Was the heart of dancing grannies. So that's a really sweet picture of her and dog. So they say, who was Virginia Sorensen? Despite a bad back and hip, Jenny loved to dance and was an instructor and choreographer for the Dancing Grannies. In fact, Jenny loved to dance so much that she had been with the group for 19 years and had no intentions of stopping. She liked the instructing, she liked the dancing, and the camaraderie of the women. She liked to perform, her husband of 56 years, David Sorensen, told the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Let's see. It says, after meeting at a church event decades ago, the duo lived a long and happy life together that led to 3 children and 6 grandchildren. Apart from the dancing grannies, Jenny also loved animals and cared for horses, chickens, dogs, and cats at her home in Muskego, I'm guessing. I might have mispronounced that. Sorry if I did. A former registered nurse, Jenny still worked part-time in medical records, using the money to pay for the horses and treat her grandchildren. Oh, but nothing could keep Jenny away from the dancing grannies. She and David held frequent parties for the group, and their grandkids would also march with them. Oh, another beautiful woman. The beloved grandmom was widely mourned after her death, with condolence messages flooding social media. If you want to know what kind of a person 79-year-old Jenny Sorensen was, read these texts she sent to my coworker, Winnie, a few months ago. Wait, Winnie? I don't know if that was a misprint. Rest in peace, Jenny. Keep on dancing, one local journalist tweeted. Another said, prayers to the family and friends of Virginia Sorensen, who died yesterday in the horrific tragedy in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Oh yeah, they're showing all the text messages. Okay, I got you. The other thing about this, though, with Virginia Sorensen was that it was, I forget how, I know that at least 2 of her sons got up and spoke. Everything, when I do the witness impact statements, that it was excellent. Everything was excellent. And her husband, I think that's what got me the most, because he was, he lost his bride, and he had on some sort of shirt or sweatshirt that was for the dancing grannies, and he apparently it was not typical for Jenny to help carry the banner, but I believe that one or both the granddaughters was really supposed to be carrying the banner that afternoon in the parade. And so I know her husband had said something like, and thank you for saving whichever the granddaughter or grandchild's name was life, because that would have been the one that would have been hit. So that's, sorry about that stuff that keeps popping up here. I'll move her over here. Move her over here. That sounds crazy. But, it was just like so touching to hear that. And all the words the husband spoke, it was just, oh my gosh, it was heartbreaking to see, and the sons, grown children, and the grandchildren. So these people have lost, their grandmothers, their mothers, their sisters, their wives. It's like, oh my gosh. So all of these people were in really good shape. This is like, it's amazing. So sweet. Okay, let me find. So I found a really good article on Wilhelm Haspel, whom they called Bill. And of course, he was the husband of one of the dancing grannies that helped out and everything, and was massacred. Well, yeah, by Darrell. But I noticed that nobody from his family spoke. And I do remember for the witness impact, I remember that I felt like Judge Darrow said something about it was just too hard for them or whomever. I'm not sure. Maybe they were just more private or something. But this is an excellent article, because I'll tell you one thing, other than it's just showing what kind of person he was, is that if you recall, when Darrell was questioning the medical examiner, trying to trying to indicate perhaps that something to do with the pacemaker or the fluid, that built up around his heart. Of course, the fluid was a result of the impact of the 3,500-pound red SUV. But yeah, Bill, as they call him, Bill Haspel, he was in great shape. So I wish people had known this, because his motto was keep moving. And it says, the title of the article says, he always kept moving, whether it was physical activity, home projects, or family events. And it says, young or old, Bill Haspel wanted everyone to be alive. Well, yeah, that's always a good thing too. But the word is really active. His favorite saying was, keep moving. He kept saying, as we get older, how important it was to keep moving and keep active, his wife Lola said. And he was 81. And under this little picture here, it says, he is pictured in October. I'm sure this is the October just prior to the month of the parade, after riding ATVs with his 2 close friends, Mike and John Donovan. So clearly, he was very active and in great shape. Age is a number, right? Only a number. And despite being 81, Lola said her husband was as active as he had ever been. Every day, she said, Haspel went to his local YMCA, an avid outdoorsman. He enjoyed hunting deer, squirrel, and the occasional pheasant with a gun or a bow. He loved dancing with his wife, ballroom, Latin dance, and even family square dances with their son Brian and daughter Lori. And he and Lola started learning the sport of pickleball in the spring. He took to it right away, Lola recalled. Every Tuesday and Thursday, it was on his calendar. We were playing pickleball. Haspel also was known for riding ATVs, or going buggy riding as he and his friends called it. In the northern part of the state, Haspel had planned a trip up north for December 11th to ride with Mike and John Donovan, two people who had lost their father young in life and looked up to Haspel as a father figure. Haspel was helping with a Milwaukee dancing Grannies group at the Waukesha Christmas parade when he was struck and killed November 21st. He is one of the 6 people to perish following the tragedy. His wife was one of the dozens injured. See, I had not realized that before, or not too much. But anyhow, Lola described her husband as a quietly affectionate man. He was not a real outgoing person, but the people he was friends with, he was really close with, Lola explained. Sorry. I've been doing a lot of digging into these because I wanted to try to find, because, you know, you want to remember how they lived, and they're also inspiring. And so he was considered what you want as an inspiration. Bill as he was known to his friends, left, I guess it's Cleve, if I mispronounced, Germany, at the age of 15 with his parents, Gerhard and Theodora Haspel, and 3 older brothers. Lola and Bill met after one of her friends, who was dating a German man, set the two up on a blind date. Haspel, Lola recalled, was only 18 or 19 years old. The couple was married for 61 years. Nita Haspel, Wilhelm Haspel's 55-year-old niece, described her uncle as truly the American success story. All the boys came over on the boat with Mom and Dad and created new successful lives in the States, she said. He was what you want as an inspiration. Haspel, Nita said, worked at a steel company and did carpentry in his spare time. Lola described Haspel as an all-around handyman who was ready and willing to tackle any home improvement project. He was a busy man. You know, it's a shame. You know what I'm going to say. It's a shame. Doofus had to cut it shorter. First, he was a cabinet maker, then a pattern maker, Lola said. He liked to repair things and do handiwork. He had a good eye for making the best use of spaces. I could sure use him. Lola said he was often deep into his projects, installing fresh wood, trimmings, and even drywalling the entirety of their West Milwaukee home. The week before he died, Nita said Haspel was at his daughter Lori's home, helping her reconstruct her floor because it had started to buckle. Isn't that crazy? His willingness to lend a helping hand to family was common, said Nita, who lives in Tampa Bay, Florida, and describes her family as very close-knit. Relatives would often gather from all over the country to attend family events prior to the pandemic. Uncle Bill and Aunt Lola, she said, would always be there. Like her father, Nita said Haspel retained his German accent, making story times at those gatherings even more special. It was always so heartwarming to see him and all the boys talking and listening to him talk with his brothers, she said. Hearing them talk about stories of the farm and where they grew up and their childhood was always fascinating. 2 years ago, Haspel returned to Germany for the first time since 1955. He had always said he had been there and didn't need to see it again, but when he was there, even in 1955, there was still a lot of damage from the war, Laura explained. Not Laura, but Lola. Sorry, Lola, his wife. When she talked him into going on a river cruise in the country of his birth, the couple met several relatives and family friends, learning new stories and seeing the country through new eyes. He grew up in the rural area of a bombed-out city, and now it's a thriving town, she said. We met so many relatives and past friends of the family. He was so happy that he went. Oh, that's good he got to do that. He was called the consummate family man. At the family's dining room table, Haspel would often say how important family was, and really mean it, Lola said. He was the consummate family man, Nita said. He was helping with the dancing grannies because my Aunt Lola was one of the dancing grannies. He was there to help all of them. Even though he didn't have much interest in joining the parades at first, once he came as a helper, Lola said he was hooked. When we needed helpers, and I got him to come and help with us, he became our biggest supporter, Lola recalled. He just couldn't get over the level of support we'd get, how people would cheer the loudest when the Grannies came out. He became so enthusiastic about the Grannies that I would tease him about it. Oh, see, that's a picture of Lola, his wife, on the left, and then that's Lee Owen, of course, the one who has lost her life. It says Lee Owen Wright poses for a photo with her good friend Lola Haspel. Both Haspel and Owen were longtime members of the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies. Oh, so sweet. On the day of the parade, Lola said she asked Haspel if he would give up the opening weekend of the gun hunt to help with the dancing grannies because they were so short on helpers. Lola, who suffered a bruised shoulder from the incident, said she would be okay. She said she will attend a gathering of retired and active dancing grannies this week. It's just a caring, loving group of ladies as strong and independent as we all are. I think it's going to be really hard, she admitted. I am so thankful for the support from my family's side and Bill's family's side. Lola said she's especially sad for the young people who were hurt at the parade. I just feel so bad for all of the children who were injured in that debacle, she said. My heart goes out to those families. Lola said that Haspel was a realist about life, knowing a day would come when one of them would have to live without the other. Bill and I often talked about it, she said. We're in our 80s. We've had some ups and downs, but we've had a good life. Since his death, the motto of Haspel's life, keep moving, has taken on new meaning for Lola. Lola shared a condolence letter from her sister Debbie, where she described Bill's life like a book and encouraged Lola to cherish the memories she shared with her husband through all of those chapters. Aww. I got it today, and it took my heart away, Lola said of the letter. It grabbed my heart. This is how his book ends, and he was doing something he loved. Aww. Look, there's photos of the dancing grannies. Oh, okay. I thought they were going to show more photos of... We'll peek and see if there's anything. Let's see. Is it going to be dancing grannies or all of the victims? Oh, there's Lee. I guess while we're here, we might as well take a gander, huh? Lee Owen poses for a photo in her costume for the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies. She was a member of the group for 12 years, her son said. Oh, that's her. Lee Owen and her granddaughter, Haley Owen are seen in a photo from a parade a few years ago. Both performed with their own dance groups. Oh, there's Jackson. This is, let's see. Oh. I think this is a picture of the Blazers baseball team. It says, Jackson and Tucker Sparks, ages 8 and 12, marched among players and coaches with the Waukesha Blazers baseball fast pitch softball club in the Waukesha Christmas Parade Sunday. Jackson on Tuesday died from his injuries. This photo was taken just before the parade began. Oh my goodness. Jackson is second from the left. Okay, let's see if we can find it. Oh yeah, on the front row. See him? Let me see. Let me make sure that's right. Behind the child in blue coaching gear. Oops. Okay, let's fix this again. Okay. Oh yeah, see? Right, let me see, right there. And then Tucker is the second from the top row on the left, wearing a white shirt over a black hoodie. Oh. And that was right before they marched. And, you know, Tucker had a lot of injuries. So those parents, you know, he had head trauma. And obviously, there's Jane Kulik. Her with one of her daughters. Taking a lot of time on this, but you know what? I spent a lot of time on Darrell, and if anyone deserves it more, it's these. Oh yeah, these were the photos I was talking about. Tamara. Durand. This was the one that I'd read about, that she was spending a few days with her friend right before she came back to march in the parade. Oh. Oh. Bill Haspel. Oh, there's Virginia. Jenny with her dogs. Oops. And I think that's it. So I found a really good article on Wilhelm Haspel, whom they called Bill. And of course, he was the husband of one of the dancing grannies that helped out and everything, and was massacred. Well, yeah, by Darrell. But I noticed that nobody from his family spoke. And I do remember for the witness impact, I remember that I feel like Judge Darrell said something about it was just too hard for them or whomever. I'm not sure. Maybe they were just more private or something. But this is an excellent article, because I'll tell you one thing, other than it's just showing what kind of person he was, is that if you recall, when Darrell was questioning the medical examiner, trying to indicate perhaps that something to do with the pacemaker or the fluid, that built up around his heart. Of course, the fluid was a result of the impact of the 3,500-pound red SUV. But Bill, as they call him, Bill Haspel, he was in great shape. So I wish people had known this. Because his motto was keep moving. And it says, the title of the article says, he always kept moving, whether it was physical activity, home projects, or family events. And it says, young or old, Bill Haspel wanted everyone to be alive. Well, yeah, that's always a good thing too. But the word is really active. His favorite saying was, keep moving. He kept saying, as we get older, how important it was to keep moving and keep active, his wife Lola said. And he was 81. And under this little picture here, it says, he is pictured in October. I'm sure this is the October just prior to the month of the parade, after riding ATVs with his two close friends, Mike and John Donovan. So clearly, he was very active and in great shape. Age is a number, right? Only a number. And despite being 81, Lola said her husband was as active as he had ever been. Every day, she said, Haspel went to his local YMCA, an avid outdoorsman. He enjoyed hunting deer, squirrel, and the occasional pheasant with a gun or a bow. He loved dancing with his wife, ballroom, Latin dance, and even family square dances with their son Brian and daughter Lori. And he and Lola started learning the sport of pickleball in the spring. He took to it right away, Lola recalled. Every Tuesday and Thursday, it was on his calendar. We were playing pickleball. Haspel also was known for riding ATVs, or going buggy riding as he and his friends called it. In the northern part of the state, Haspel had planned a trip up north for December 11th to ride with Mike and John Donovan, two people who had lost their father young in life and looked up to Haspel as a father figure. Haspel was helping with a Milwaukee dancing Grannies group at the Waukesha Christmas parade when he was struck and killed November 21st. He is one of the 6 people to perish following the tragedy. His wife was one of the dozens injured. See, I had not realized that before, or not too much. But anyhow, Lola described her husband as a quietly affectionate man. He was not a real outgoing person, but the people he was friends with, he was really close with, Lola explained. Sorry. I've been doing a lot of digging into these because I wanted to try to find, because, you want to remember how they lived, and they're also inspiring. And so he was considered what you want as an inspiration. Bill as he was known to his friends, left, I guess it's Cleve, if I mispronounced, Germany, at the age of 15 with his parents, Gerhard and Theodora Haspel, and 3 older brothers. Lola and Bill met after one of her friends, who was dating a German man, set the two up on a blind date. Haspel, Lola recalled, was only 18 or 19 years old. The couple was married for 61 years. Nita Haspel, Wilhelm Haspel's 55-year-old niece, described her uncle as truly the American success story. All the boys came over on the boat with Mom and Dad and created new successful lives in the States, she said. He was what you want as an inspiration. Haspel, Nita said, worked at a steel company and did carpentry in his spare time. Lola described Haspel as an all-around handyman who was ready and willing to tackle any home improvement project. He was a busy man. It's a shame. You know what I'm going to say. It's a shame. Doofus had to cut it shorter. First, he was a cabinet maker, then a pattern maker, Lola said. He liked to repair things and do handiwork. He had a good eye for making the best use of spaces. I could sure use him. Lola said he was often deep into his projects, installing fresh wood, trimmings, and even drywalling the entirety of their West Milwaukee home. The week before he died, Nita said Haspel was at his daughter Lori's home, helping her reconstruct her floor because it had started to buckle. Isn't that crazy? His willingness to lend a helping hand to family was common, said Nita, who lives in Tampa Bay, Florida, and describes her family as very close-knit. Relatives would often gather from all over the country to attend family events prior to the pandemic. Uncle Bill and Aunt Lola, she said, would always be there. Like her father, Nita said Haspel retained his German accent, making story times at those gatherings even more special. It was always so heartwarming to see him and all the boys talking and listening to him talk with his brothers, she said. Hearing them talk about stories of the farm and where they grew up and their childhood was always fascinating. 2 years ago, Haspel returned to Germany for the first time since 1955. He had always said he had been there and didn't need to see it again, but when he was there, even in 1955, there was still a lot of damage from the war, Laura explained. Not Laura, but Lola. Sorry, Lola, his wife. When she talked him into going on a river cruise in the country of his birth, the couple met several relatives and family friends, learning new stories and seeing the country through new eyes. He grew up in the rural area of a bombed-out city, and now it's a thriving town, she said. We met so many relatives and past friends of the family. He was so happy that he went. Oh, that's good he got to do that. He was called the consummate family man. At the family's dining room table, Haspel would often say how important family was, and really mean it, Lola said. He was the consummate family man, Nita said. He was helping with the dancing grannies because my Aunt Lola was one of the dancing grannies. He was there to help all of them. Even though he didn't have much interest in joining the parades at first, once he came as a helper, Lola said he was hooked. When we needed helpers, and I got him to come and help with us, he became our biggest supporter, Lola recalled. He just couldn't get over the level of support we'd get, how people would cheer the loudest when the Grannies came out. He became so enthusiastic about the Grannies that I would tease him about it. Aww. See, that's a picture of Lola, his wife, on the left, and then that's Lee Owen, of course, the one who has lost her life. It says Lee Owen Wright poses for a photo with her good friend Lola Haspel. Both Haspel and Owen were longtime members of the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies. Oh, so sweet. On the day of the parade, Lola said she asked Haspel if he would give up the opening weekend of the gun hunt to help with the dancing grannies because they were so short on helpers. Lola, who suffered a bruised shoulder from the incident, said she would be okay. She said she will attend a gathering of retired and active dancing grannies this week. It's just a caring, loving group of ladies as strong and independent as we all are. I think it's going to be really hard, she admitted. I am so thankful for the support from my family's side and Bill's family's side. Lola said she's especially sad for the young people who were hurt at the parade. I just feel so bad for all of the children who were injured in that debacle, she said. My heart goes out to those families. Lola said that Haspel was a realist about life, knowing a day would come when one of them would have to live without the other. Bill and I often talked about it, she said. We're in our 80s. We've had some ups and downs, but we've had a good life. Since his death, the motto of Haspel's life, "Keep Moving," has taken on new meaning for Lola. Lola shared a condolence letter from her sister Debbie, where she described Bill's life like a book and encouraged Lola to cherish the memories she shared with her husband through all of those chapters. Aww. "I got it today, and it took my heart away," Lola said of the letter. "It grabbed my heart." This is how his book ends, and he was doing something he loved. Aww. Look, there's photos of the dancing grannies. Oh, okay. I thought they were going to show more photos of... We'll peek and see if there's anything. Let's see. Is it going to be dancing grannies or all of the victims? Oh, there's Lee. I guess while we're here, we might as well take a gander, huh? Lee Owen poses for a photo in her costume for the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies. She was a member of the group for 12 years, her son said. Oh, that's her. Lee Owen and her granddaughter, Haley Owen, are seen in a photo from a parade a few years ago. Both performed with their own dance groups. Oh, there's Jackson. This is, let's see. Oh. I think this is a picture of the Blazers baseball team. It says, Jackson and Tucker Sparks, ages 8 and 12, marched among players and coaches with the Waukesha Blazers baseball fast pitch softball club in the Waukesha Christmas Parade Sunday. Jackson on Tuesday died from his injuries. This photo was taken just before the parade began. Oh my goodness. Jackson is second from the left. Okay, let's see if we can find it. Oh yeah, on the front row. See him? Let me see. Let me make sure that's right. Behind the child in blue coaching gear. Oops. Okay, let's fix this again. Okay. Oh yeah, see? Right, let me see, right there. And then Tucker is the second from the top row on the left, wearing a white shirt over a black hoodie. Oh. And that was right before they marched. And, you know, Tucker had a lot of injuries. So those parents, you know, he had head trauma. And obviously, there's Jane Kulik. Her with one of her daughters. Taking a lot of time on this, but you know what? I spent a lot of time on Darrell, and if anyone deserves it more, it's these. Oh yeah, these were the photos I was talking about. Tamara. Durand. This was the one that I'd read about, that she was spending a few days with her friend right before she came back to march in the parade. Oh. Oh. Bill Haspel. Oh, there's Virginia. Jenny with her dogs. Oops. And I think that's it. So last, but certainly not least, I found something on Jackson Sparks, the youngest of the victims. And it was this little news piece they did, and they spoke to Jackson's family 8 months after the attack. And it was really inspiring. And you get to see some really super cute footage of Jackson. I think the thing that, well, there's so many things. I think each of these people, you know, I mean, of course, it's especially devastating when it's someone as young as Jackson. But if you look at every single one of these people, they all were leading very healthy, energetic lives, no matter their age. And a loss is a loss. And all of these people were truly, they seemed like truly, genuinely nice people. My mom, who is very down to earth about things, you know, she would always say things like, I can't stand it when somebody, you know, just because somebody dies, somebody makes a saint out of them. Well, of course, none of us are saints, but I knew what she was talking about. All of a sudden, you know, this person, I mean, they may not have been a, you know, horrible person. Maybe they weren't that nice. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, they were so wonderful. And you're like thinking, well, they weren't. But I think you get the picture. That was just my mom. She was very funny. But I get what she's saying. But these people, if you know, just listen to how they were described, they really all were very special people. And certainly did not deserve this. But anyhow, you'll probably be happy to know that I found the news piece on Jackson. And so it won't just be me reading and fumbling about the people, but I just, like I said, I spent a long time on it, but I felt like as much time as we spend on Darrell, the victims really deserve it. And after hearing him and how he was so insensitive about, you know, when they questioned the medical examiners, which again, I think both of them were wonderful and truly respectful, but him asking his stupid, insensitive questions, I just felt like, you know what, maybe if we all get to know these victims and their families a little bit more, it would help, and it certainly helped me. I hope it'll help you all. Let me go ahead and play this little bit they have on Jackson and his family.
Countless people whose lives were changed forever that day. But no one had talked to the family of the only child killed until now.
I sat down with the Sparks family at Infinity Fields Baseball Park in Waukesha to talk about Jackson Sparks and a whole lot more.
All right.
That smile. Toothless and full of joy. So many people have come to adore it.
I miss his laugh. I miss a lot about that little boy.
Her little boy, 8-year-old Jackson Sparks, one of 6 people killed in the Waukesha parade attack, but by far the youngest.
He was an amazing little kid, and we're gonna miss him a lot.
For the first time since their little boy was taken 7 months ago, Aaron and Sherry Sparks, along with big brother Tucker, talking about Jackson publicly.
He loved life. He loved playing sports. He loved catching frogs. He loved, you know, being outside, and he was a little ball of energy.
I tuck him in bed at night and lay down with him, and question after question, you know, where do crickets live? What do frogs eat? And I'm like, Jackson, okay, one more question and go to sleep. He just was full of questions.
And so full of life. A little shy and nervous maybe, until you got to know him. Then he was nothing but energy and fun. He loved to play sports. Baseball more than anything. He was obsessed with the Hulk, the Mosasaurus from Jurassic Park, and Braun Strowman of the WWE. This was his last Christmas.
Oh, Braun Strowman!
Oh, look at that! Go thank your brother for that. He found that for you.
He liked LeBron James.
We actually put a Giannis poster up in his room and he tore it down.
I would say Giannis is better. He said, no, LeBron is better.
He cheered for the Yankees and Aaron Judge.
Marched to the beat of his own drum.
Beat, you know, he liked what he liked. He did what he did, and
and he'd fight you for it.
You know.
This is a family of fighters and of faith, believing that their son and brother is in a better place, pain-free, waiting for them.
We'll meet him again. in heaven, he got there first, and he'll show us around when we get there. So he'll be our tour guide, but we'll see him again.
But in the meantime, Jackson still shows up in their lives, saying what's up to his big brother using his favorite number.
I've seen a ton of signs. On the last day of school, me and my friends went to Culver's by ourselves and stuff, and my order number was 23.
He sends signs to his parents, too. I miss you, Mom. With a matching bracelet they shared, reappearing in a folded-up wagon.
And I pull it open, and there lays a paracord bracelet. This bracelet's been lost for 4 years.
I love you, Dad. With a baseball, buried in a bucket, signed by Jackson last Father's Day.
Seeing Jackson's saying I love you and, writing his name, it was an emotional moment. And I think that's Jackson and, God giving us peace, giving us comfort, knowing that he's okay and we will be okay.
Jackson was an organ donor and helped 5 people after he passed away, including a little girl who got his heart. Sherry, his mom, hopes to meet that little girl one day.
Okay, folks. Well, when I heard that part about a little girl getting Jackson's heart, that just gave me chills. Can you imagine? And then meeting her one day. But anyhow, and I always forget, but I know I put, I usually do, sometimes I forget, but usually it's in the comment section right at the top. I'll pin something where they're taking donations or whatever for them. And of course you don't have to give to anyone, but in case somebody wants to, I still really would like to, I don't know how, they have Waukesha Strong t-shirts. I think they have for sale. I mean, you could just go directly that way to support them. I mean, I'm assuming they're still selling them. I'll check it out and let you know. I'd still love to. I haven't done it yet. I would like to get some merchandise, more like t-shirts, things that we could identify with. But it'd be great if we could get a t-shirt. I still keep thinking about that. Get a t-shirt made for the 6 of these people, and some sort of t-shirt. I got to work on that. If anyone has any ideas, let me know. And then I would put it up with other merchandise, but that would go specifically to the right places, not to me, but to the victims and families and all that kind of stuff. But I'll work that out. That's just something I'm saying out loud in the future, I would really like to do that because it's just, these people deserve to be remembered. And, even though I know I do a lot of Darrell, a lot of it is, again, just because he's such a loathsome person. And these people remind us and their families that, they're so much stronger than he would ever hope to be. So, on that note, I know you've heard from me a lot. I love you all so much. I'm sorry I'm all jumbled up on responding and all that good stuff. I guess I hate to just not get content up for you either. It's always like this. Like I said, I'm still trying to work it out, but don't think that your comments don't mean anything, and the fact that you watch and subscribe, because they truly do. I know I say it a lot, but it's important that I'm just trying to work out how to do all of this. But in the meantime, hopefully I give you stuff that provide content that will at least entertain, and this one hopefully touch your heart, but in a good way. But remember, be kind to one another, be kind to yourself, and I will see you the next time.